Joe, we're going to play a little game to get you started. First of all, thanks for being here. Really appreciate you giving the time. But I want to play a pronunciation game because you got to help me out. I called it Etobicoke. I've called it Etobicoke. Please, God, tell me how to pronounce the town that your team plays for.
Etobicoke.
Etobicoke.
There you go. You got it.
Etobicoke.
Exactly.
Do people get it wrong a lot?
A lot. Yeah, a ton.
Okay. So people just refer to you as Dolphins U22. I suppose that speaks for itself, huh?
Amongst other things.
And how do you pronounce your last name?
Butkevich.
Butkevich. Butkevich and Etobicoke. All right,
There
we've
you
got
go.
the hard stuff out of the way. Joe Butkevich, the head coach of the U22 Elite Etobicoke Dolphins. Joe, thanks again for being here.
Hey, there's no way around. I'm top of the mount. I'm queen of the mountain. My cup running over. I already told ya. I'm moving fast. You live in the past.
What are you up to today?
Today is just a big game last night, big win last night, and just watched some video, getting ready for 2 more games this weekend. So getting ready for that, and leaving a week today for U18 national championships. So coaching Team Ontario. So looking forward to that.
So you basically live out of a duffel bag and a backpack.
Yeah, that's pretty much my life. That and traveling across the top of Toronto to get to Etobicoke.
All righty, let's go back in the scrapbook for a second. Where did you grew up in North Bay, and I read an interview you did where you played for the precursor to the battalion. Who were some of your early hockey influences? How'd you get involved in the game?
Yeah, I grew up in a small town, Northern Ontario, North Bay, Ontario. Outdoor rinks, was around the North Bay Centennials growing up all my life. Watching hockey, watching the OHL, the Ontario Hockey League up here. Just a rink rat. Just hockey's been my life since as long as I can remember, and everything I do kind of revolves around hockey. If you ask my wife, I can't stop talking about hockey. So hockey's my life. It was men's, boys hockey growing up, but then it translated and I switched over to female hockey being a big part of my life. I think that came from my sister playing hockey and helping out with her teams to moving down here and having a wife that's a 3-time Olympic gold medalist for Team Canada, and her teaching me how to coach female hockey and females and how to understand them and how to coach them properly. So hockey's been my life. I'm very proud of it. It's allowed me to travel the world now, coaching Team Poland's national team and Team China's U18 team. So it's taken me some pretty cool spots around the world, and wouldn't have it any other way.
A wife with 3 gold medals for Team Canada. Who is your wife?
Sherry Piper.
Sherry Piper. Okay. So you guys, is there a battle to be the alpha in the household?
Oh, I know who it is, and it's not me. So
it's the one with 3 gold medals.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
How did you two meet? Did you meet at a rink? Did you meet through friends? Did you meet over a puck and a stick, or what?
It's honestly not a thrilling story. It was that when I was in university, her best friend was my neighbor, and she came to visit. So nothing thrilling, nothing out of this world, nothing cool. We did get married at Center Ice in North Bay, though. So that was pretty cool. So my hometown rink. So that was pretty cool.
Well, I re-met. I knew my wife in college, but we reconnected on Tinder. So I have a worse story than you do. At least you got married at Center Ice. I got married in a park and reacquainted myself with my wife online. So you have a cooler story than I do.
Hey, we'll go with that.
Now, I thought I was being real clever wanting to interview you because I thought, who interviews technically a minor hockey coach? And I Googled you, and all of a sudden, all these names start popping up. The Hockey News, Bay Today, Rinkside Rundown, North Bay Nugget. So you're on, over the past couple of years, it feels like you've been on a little bit of a media tour. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, not something I'm comfortable with. I'd rather the attention go to my players or my staff, but I appreciate the people giving some recognition. That's not why I do it. I just want to grow the female game to the best of my abilities, and when everything's all said and done, I left the game in a better place than I found it.
How long have you been coaching female hockey?
It's my 10th year with Etobicoke, and I did 3 years before that with Markham Stouffville U18 AA team, which is the equivalent to AAA.
No, and there was kind of an interesting story with you joining Markham. You had a conversation with a GM in the Canadian Women's Hockey League, and they recommended you for the job.
Yeah, it was one of those things where Markham. It was I was supposed to be the assistant coach. The head coach quit last minute. I became the quasi head coach. I had some started growing that program, and then the current coach at the time of Etobicoke recommended me to the president and the association that I should take over for her when she was leaving Etobicoke. So met with the president, kind of gave my plan and how I plan to build the program in Etobicoke, and that's how it started. Everybody sees our success now, but nobody remembers or fails to look back at we were the doormat in our league forever. It took a while to get out of that basement, to get out of the thrashings that we did, and we took our medicine the first few years. But I'm a huge believer in research and duplicate, not research and development, and pick little things from what everybody kind of does well, and put it into your own program, and you tinker with it as you go. It's not my full-time job, but I treat it like a full-time job. It's a 365. People can catch me in the dressing room or around our facilities in the summer, just puttering around like it's my man cave, and cleaning up and talking to the arena staff, the rink guys, the Zamboni guys, that kind of stuff. So Etobicoke is my something I'm proud of and something I love to do.
Research and duplicate. I want to touch on that for a second. Who have you been researching and who have you been duplicating? Because I'd imagine when it starts with researching, the amount of teams or programs you research goes like this. And then as you research, the amount that you want to duplicate goes like this. So walk me through your research and duplicate process.
Yeah, when I first took over the Stony Creek Sabres, the Toronto Arrows, the Oakville Hornets, those were some, Whitby Wolves, those were some programs that were just every year, the four of them were just, on any given day or any given season, one of those teams could win a championship. And you just saw how, what they did, how professional they were, their traditions, their, everything they did day to day. I looked at that. I modeled that. Kenny Duffton, who was my wife's coach, was the coach of the Arrows, and, he looked out for me. Kevin Schramm, that was in Whitby, kind of looked out for me. There's a lot of people that looked out for me. Brady Cochran, who was an amazing coach in Oakville, looked out for me. I just had so many people that looked out for me that were family friends that, that I could, pick their brain or, give me a call like, hey, don't do that, or hey, watch out for this, those types of things. So, and, I try to take it upon myself now. There's lots of coaches that'll come into the league and will call me. I'm happy to grow the game and share what's worked and what hasn't worked for me. At the end of the day, if, my wife and I do not have kids, I have 18 of them in Etobicoke that I'm happy to give back when I get the attitude. But if my nieces are good enough one day to play in our league, and maybe one day they can see, hey, Uncle Joe had a big part of growing this game and gaining recognition. And I say all the time, there's nothing better to come to the rink and the girls come in and, the AAA boys are at school are all jealous at everything that they get in Etobicoke. And I think that's pretty cool. It's changing. I say it all the time. It sounds cliche, but changing the why to why not. Like, why can't you have it just because of you're a female? Like, I think that's kind of messed up thinking. So that's the kind of, moniker that I've taken when I've done this. And my personality is always to top myself. And, sometimes that makes for some long weeks and sleepless nights, but, that's kind of where we're at right now.
It sounds as though I don't want to separate. When it comes to women's hockey, I think that women's hockey does not a great job of separating the sport from the cause. I think sometimes we can get too caught up in the cause, and ignore the game a little bit. But it feels like the cause, equity, whatever you want to call it, it sounds kind of personal for you. You mentioned your niece, and you mentioned that the AAA team is jealous of what your girls get. Is it personal for you? Do you take it as a personal challenge to make sure that your girls are treated just as well, if not better, as their male counterparts?
I take it more as a privilege of what I get to do. We get the ribbings, we get, the backlash, we get, everything under the sun from people outside of our organization and when they look in, right? So I take it personal in the sense that, hey, I'm just a guy that's growing the game, that puts my blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. it's working with sponsors, working with stakeholders, working with everything else to try to give our girls stuff. And, I hope it is a copycat or, a cat and mouse kind of thing where other teams are trying to keep up with us. If that's the case, then we're growing the game. Rather than, being jealous or rather than how did you do that? It's like, maybe you're researching and duplicating us. And then we're doing the same thing. There's a lot of teams in our league that do phenomenal jobs on live broadcasting or on their social media or their staff or, their charity causes. There's so many teams that I look up to and I admire for what they're doing. And it's outside of hockey, but it's not just the hockey player, you're building the person, so getting them to understand that you don't have to be here, you get to be here. So that's why it is kind of personal for me. It's in that sense, I grew up, my parents weren't well off, but they made sure that I had the ability to play hockey. So I look at that and, looking for causes right now to raise funds. A golf tournament this year, we did $40,000 in a day.
Beautiful.
Hosting an exhibition series weekend with 29 other teams to raise funds for stuff. It's not getting any cheaper to play hockey, and all these kids need those $400 sticks and $1,000 skates. So, and, you're trying to make it affordable for parents, for guardians, for these kids to give them, access to hopefully a scholarship. And we've been fortunate enough to allow our kids a platform to be seen to get these looks and therefore scholarships.
I was reading another story that you did, and you mentioned to the person in the interview that you have a mental health and performance coach, Cassidy Preston, a full-time nutritionist, a physiotherapist, a photographer, a communications manager. How do you convince these people to put in what you put in for a women's hockey program? Like, it's easy. I manage a team of photographers here, and it's easy to find someone to go to the UND Minnesota men's series. That's easy. Finding someone to go to a girls' high school game on a Thursday night is a little less easy. How do you convince people to sort of get on your train and see this as a worthwhile, not just a goal or a passion, but a mission?
It's getting people to see that it takes a village. And, people have a voice in our program. I'm not, the dictator of like my way or the highway. Brian, our equipment manager, has now brought out his daughter as equipment manager, and Brian's the equipment manager with me for Team Ontario. And Team Ontario sends 2 teams to national championships because we're so big. And his daughter's the other equipment manager. So now he's fostering that development. And, Brian's kind of like me. We want to top ourselves. And he's always looking out for what can we do bigger and better, equipment dryer. Hey, what about this for the players? Or, what about this? And now his daughter's doing it. And then our photographer, she just sees, she comes in, the girls are giving her a hug. I always tell the kids and, some parents have, complimented me on this. I don't want a pat on the back. Don't even look at me, thank me when I give you something, like show manners that way. But kind of our unwritten rule is I want you to find one staff member every week and thank them for what they do. They're not getting rich over this, but it's, becoming a better person and, the attitude of gratitude, understanding that these people could be at home, or they could be somewhere else and doing a hobby of their own, but they're choosing to be around our program. And I think over the years, we've had a lot of people reach out. Our communications manager used his portfolio with Etobicoke to now he's working with the Toronto Blue Jays based on the portfolio from working with us. Go Jays, go to the World Series tonight. So a little shameless plug there. There you go. Love it.
I got you, Joe. I got you.
Love it. I think we use our platform as well as a springboard for other people for, any goals or any dreams or anything that they aspire to do, whether it be, go to a nationals or become a head coach of their own or take their own program or what have you. I want to be able to do this. If I have the ability to help people, I will. This game is bigger than me. It's bigger than all of us. It takes everybody, so that's kind of how I see it. And that's why it's been good. A lot of my assistant coach was a head coach in our league. He's my best friend. His family's like, I'm Uncle Joe to his daughter, so when people share, same morals, same, values and same stuff like that, and they see my passion, I wear my heart on my sleeve with this program. Sometimes I might get taken the wrong way. I'm loud when I coach, but I coach my heart on my sleeve. It was nice yesterday. Clarky from Minnesota texted me, I miss you as a coach. Those are things that, mean a lot. We butted heads when she was in Etobicoke, but still go out for dinner with her family in the summer all the time. So it's good to see that, especially when people see that it's not, it's not personal. It's I know I have a job to do, but it's a passion. And when you leave the program, whether a staff or a player, you're leaving better than you came in. I hope, knock on wood. That's my hope. Not always the case, but you're going to be equipped with survival skills from our program.
I think that there's a misconception, especially in youth sports, where a season goes by, and you guys have had so many seasons where you've been undefeated or close to undefeated, where people assume that it's all unicorns and rainbows every day when you show up, and they get along so well, and that's so great. But I think coaches would prefer for there to be a little animosity and a little bit of friction, because it keeps everybody engaged. It's easy to lose sight of the goal when everything is too easy, but when you do butt heads with a couple of players, does that make you feel more comfortable in the team overall that you do have those disagreements?
It's healthy to have uncomfortable conversations. To avoid it just makes it worse. I tell our kids all the time, you hear coaches about 24-hour rule. That should be for the parents, not for the kids. You don't want a kid going home. They're teenagers at the end of the day. They're going to go home and, play mental warfare for themselves because they couldn't read a body language or a cue or something, or they mistook, how a phrase or how something was said. And it's like, come have a conversation. Maybe you're misreading into something, or maybe actually I'm upset. And then we can have an uncomfortable discussion on why. I've asked you to do X, Y, and Z 100 times, and you choose to do just X. So it's like, let's have those conversations. Your parents, drop you off, pick you up, pay the bill. Thank you. You afforded the ability to coach you, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to treat you like my kid. That's the personal part as well. If you want to go back to personal, I take it personal. Like, it ain't cheap to play hockey. Like, and when you get dropped off, I now become your parent until you leave. I'm going to look over you. I'm going to give you a kick in the butt when you need it, but a pat on the back when you're doing something good, and everything else in between. So I don't take what I do lightly. I take it very serious. I'm a fun-loving guy, but when that puck's dropped, or when I know that I need to get kids ready for the next level, I take it serious. I know that I'm borrowing them for their $250,000 scholarship. That's I'm not paying them that. I'm affording them opportunities in Etobicoke, but I'm not paying their education package. So, when they go there, I want them to be able to be, I call it playable. You're not on the fourth line. You're not holding a clipboard up in the stands. You have the intangibles, both in character-wise and on ice habits, to get in there and find some way to help your team. So that's something we focus on all the time, is being playable.
Would that also go in line with, sometimes it feels like kids, they make their verbal commitment on Instagram or on Twitter, and it might feel like, okay, I finally did it. I made my commitment. That's amazing. I've achieved the goal. It sounds like you want your players to not just be able to commit, but contribute right away. And if you don't maximize your collegiate experience and turn it into professional experience, whether it's in the PWHL or overseas, then ultimately we haven't failed, but we haven't succeeded. Getting you to college is just step one. Is that how you guys view your role coaching U22s?
Yeah, I live by the thing too of be where your feet are. It's all great and dandy that you got your scholarship, but if every year, let's not turn a blind eye to how many of those kids are in a transfer portal. So you get recruited, and we watch all these movies and we see all these fairy tale endings. Well, you got picked up at the airport, you got wined and dined by these schools. That's their job. But the first day of campus, they're not waiting for you at the airport. They're not whining and dining you as soon as you get on campus. You're a student athlete as amongst thousands of people. So you get this thing that when you get there, it's always going to be this like recruitment pitch where it's like, you're the greatest, you're the number one, we want you. Then you get there and it's like, I look around, I'm like, the only difference is I'm a student, or I'm a student athlete. I'm not just a student. So I think it's getting them to understand that stuff. Like, yeah, the grass isn't always greener, and sometimes we've had some really good teams, and maybe this is the best team you've ever played on, but you're rushing to get out the door because you want to get to the NCAA. You're trying to fast track everything, rather than being in the moment, being where your feet are, savoring the moment, because before you know it, you're at graduation day and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe minor hockey's done. Well, it's because you kept on wishing it for it to be done, that you didn't enjoy it while you were here. And then you get there and, NCAA is a business. And that's why, it is what it is. It's a business. And, those coaches, your performance is their mortgage payment. So, they need you to be good. They can't be taking chances on you at times, or, if they keep on asking you to do X, Y, and Z, you don't do it. Well, you're not going to play. And, at times then you're going to be looking for the transfer portal, aka greener grass, and you're going to keep on chasing that dream.
Or you get the text message from the coach saying, hey, come to my office. And they start the conversation with, how do you think you're doing? How do you think you're doing? You might be getting a light shove out the door, which, in some cases I think could end up being best for both parties, but you would prefer to see transfers be for legitimate reasons that benefit both parties as opposed to hurt feelings on either side.
Absolutely. You see it all the time. And I said to some of our players this week, a player asked for a call. I'm like, I'm just on a call with one of our alumni. Like, I've been on like 4 phone calls in the last week with alumni picking my brain. And it's like, well, are you doing this? Well, are you doing this? Are you first on, last off? Well, sometimes. Like, are you at every gym session? Are you at study hall? Are you asking for feedback? Well, no, it's because you're scared to hear the truth, or you're scared to have a tough conversation because that you're not all in, or you pick up the phone and your parents are telling you that it's everybody else when, and when you look in the mirror that you're not all in. It's not all the case, but it's at times I think kids will eventually come around that want me to tell them what they need to hear sometimes, but it's also telling them, of giving them some tips of like, hey, you're being told 3 different things from 3 different coaches, get them all in a room so they can all get on the same page so you're not confused. Yeah. Certain things like that, or, ask for, a player recently just said, well, they said that they need me in the lineup, that, it's crucial to have me in the lineup. But I'm like, okay, that's great. You're not playing lots, but did you ask for, like, give me some areas that I need to focus on to get more ice time? Not that, you're doing great or you're a great kid. Well, that doesn't really help you focus in on, narrow in on a practice or on those 7 shifts that you're going to get on, okay, I need to focus on my gap, or I need to focus on getting in on an F1, or I need to focus on my shift length, or I need to focus on hard on and hard off the ice, or my body language is awful. Certain things like that. You don't know what you don't know, right? Or, ask video because you want video and not because you're checking a box.
I love hearing you say that, and I love mentioning that you mentioned every facet, like the video coach. You could throw the strength coach in there too. Like, these people, you're not bothering them by asking them for feedback. Part of their job is to give you feedback. So don't be afraid to ask the power play coach, hey, why I was on the power play, now I'm not. Why am I not? It's because you're not fast enough. Okay, cool. Hey, strength coach, how do I need to do some different exercises? Do I need to do more exercises? Hey, nutritionist, do I need to cut something out of my diet? Like, those people are there to help you, so don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, and we live in an era where we don't want to have tough conversations or hear stuff, right? And especially if you're going to certain programs, you're coming from programs where you're the top dog, right? And, forever. I always say to certain players, you come to our program and it's like, it was awesome, U18 or U15 up here. You had the puck on your stick all the time, so you never had to play defense in your life, so you don't know how to play defense because you've never had to play defense. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, you start playing higher level hockey, start playing nationally or international hockey, and people are good, and you're like, oh my God. Well, it's because you didn't have the skills to do it. So you need to learn it, and you need to be wanting to learn it. And, we focus once a week on shot blocking. We put a huge price on shot blocking. We were winning 6-1 last night and on the 4-minute PK at the end of the game, and our kids were diving in front of pucks, and it was a 6-1 game. It's easy to mail it in and, be like a cheap tent from Walmart and be like, yeah, not happening today. We're up 6-1. But it's a culture that you build of everybody wants to do it. And I say you make it contagious. So you don't want to be that one person that's not doing it because you're going to stick out like a sore thumb. So it's making people, to buy in, to believe in stuff. You take it off the shin. Well, it's a long way from the heart. So, figure it out. You're getting a check mark and you're standing out for something in the crowd. And we do it as our bench goes absolutely crazy for every shot block because it's, you're not selfish, you're selfless. You're doing something for the team, not for yourself.
And if a Division I coach or a scout is in the stands and they see your girls blocking shots when it's 6-1, imagine what those girls are going to do when it's 2-2 late in the third period. If they're going to block shots at 6-1, I mean, they might cut off a limb to stop a goal from going in when it's tied up.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool that we have university programs asking, so how do you teach shot blocking or what drills? And I'm doing it, and all of a sudden I get a message. I'm like, they're doing your drill. So it's like, I love it. I'm like, that's awesome. I'm like, that's pretty cool. So yeah.
I'll let you personally off the hook for the moment because now we're going to talk about your team. You said you don't like to talk about yourself, and I just grilled you for 25 minutes. So thanks for letting me do that.
No worries.
But your team currently one overtime loss, but 12-0. Other than that, you got some big time names on your roster: Adriana Milani, Madeline McCullough, Haley Box, who's originally from Eden Prairie, and Megan Mossy, who's a U of M commit. I told you off camera that I had a story about Adriana that I'd like to share. We also own a franchise called Team Minnesota Girls, which travel and play in these. Oh gosh, what is it called? Not the Brick Series, the Rose Series.
Rose Series.
And I went with our 09 group to Charleston, South Carolina, and since in 2022, and since then they've been one of my favorite groups. Get along really well with the girls and the parents. And Adriana scored late in the third period to beat Team Minnesota in the championship against pro hockey. And I don't want to say I have a grudge against Adriana. She broke my heart. She broke my heart that
You've done that to a lot of teams, so count yourself as one of them.
She was so freaking good, man. When I pulled up your roster and I saw that name, I thought, holy shit, that's number 10 or number 22 or whatever she was wearing from pro hockey that dominated for 3 periods.
Yeah, she's number 43 for us now, and we refer to her, and her nickname is Pip.
Pip. Why is it Pip?
I think it's for Pipsqueak. I think it comes from her parents.
Well, she is a shit disturber on the ice. She's got every skill, but she likes to stick her nose in there and she likes to stir things up, man. She's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, she's pretty dynamic. Yeah, and she was highly sought after in the NCAA recruitment process.
As was Megan Mossy. What they love about her, she's so strong and she seemed really invested in playing. She was the type of player who could show up and, like we were talking about earlier, not just, stand in the stands with a clipboard and track shots, but she could show up and immediately contribute. Is she like that with the Dolphins as well?
We had Emma Venucio, our captain, who's now at Wisconsin, with us for 3, almost 4 years. Shoot a puck, and I was like, there's nobody this year we're going to come along and shoot a puck like Venucio. Well, if you want to ask Mississauga's goaltender, that hit her right between the eyes last night, and I thought, just bell rung her right between the eyes. Mossy's shot is feared. She's hit a referee in the chest this year. She's hit some people in the feet this year, where you hear some yelps and you hear some sounds that are very unfamiliar to an ear. Mossy can shoot a puck. She can snap a puck. She is a very strong young woman. Has the reach, has the shot, has the strength, has the pedigree, has had international, national competition, represented her province, represented her side of the country with Team Atlantic. She's been, Team Canada in the August series. Just a good kid. She's an easy person to cheer for.
Yeah, that was the other thing that he mentioned specifically. Can absolutely rip the puck. Extremely dangerous offensively.
And none of it's a slap shot. It's all snapshot.
None of it's the slap with the big wind-up?
I don't think I've ever – maybe like a quarter clapper, but everything's a snap. And it's like, oh, my God. Like last year in her first year with us, she scored some goals where the rink went quiet and the goalie didn't move and it already hit the twine. And everybody was just like, how does someone that young shoot a puck? And, we'll have beer league guys on. We'll be playing small area games at the end of practice. And you see all these grown men out watching us play, and you can just see them all hitting each other like, oh, my God. And, she's there's other kids on our team. That's what I mean. I don't think enough men give these young ladies the credit that they're due. They shoot pucks. They snap pucks. It just keeps on getting better and better as well.
Has she been have you guys used a velocity gun on her shot at all?
No, we haven't. I don't think it would measure it, nor do I want to know it, because I'd have to tell that referee how hard he got hit with that puck in the chest.
You want him to finish the game. You don't want him to rush off to the hospital, right?
Exactly. Yeah. He's a little skittish after he got hit there.
Now, every player on your team is committed to a Division I program. Is that correct?
Everyone, yep. As of
everyone
3 weeks ago.
Has that ever happened since you've been with the Dolphins?
We've had every player committed. Every player has left our program for the last 9 years in a row with a scholarship. Not all with NCAA scholarships, but 9 years in a row, every one of our kids that's come through our program has left and has gone to play university hockey somewhere. This year, it just happens that every player has an NCAA scholarship. A lot of them are going to the same school. You know, we have 4 going to Minnesota, 2 going to BU, 3 going to Cornell, 2 going to Stonehill. So it's pretty cool to see that.
Do you feel almost spoiled when you look up and down your bench at some points? Like, who do I want to put in? Do I want to put in the Gopher commit? Maybe I'll go with the Terrier commit. Forget it. Throw out the Cornell commit. Do you ever feel spoiled looking down the bench?
I feel privileged on what I get to coach. You know, it's, yeah, you know, I used to apologize for it with the program we built because you get the backlash and everything else, but you know, if you build it, they will come. I'm proud of it, but I place a huge emphasis on development. Yeah, it's easy to say go next, but you know, for power play and 5-on-5, we roll lines, and then the only thing we really shorten the bench on is penalty kill. And if you can't block shots, you don't penalty kill. You know, Melanie came in the first half of her first year with us. She didn't penalty kill, and she took it personally, where it was like, screw you, Joe. I'm going to be penalty killing, so I'm going to be blocking shots. And she came up with a huge one in a tournament that we won. Very end against Stansted, who's a well-known program up here, and it was a 2-0 game. And I put her on the ice. I was like, oh, double underager, putting her on the ice. Here you go. And she came up and made a huge shot block. And then you could just see that euphoric, you know, rise of like, I can get that same feeling I get when I score by blocking a shot. You know, and then you get the aha moment. And now you look, she's our go-to penalty killer with Pickett that's going to Minnesota. You know, then you come back with McCullough and Ishmael. You know, then you come back with Box and Van Wolfson, and then so forth and so on. And it's, yeah, but they're playing hockey the right way when they're going. You know, it's, I said to you off camera, it's tough sometimes because you got to teach them that there's only one puck. You know, and an assist is just as good as in goal, and you can stand out for an unbelievable assist when someone just has to tap it in the net. Or, you know, it's great. You love to score, but you got to get the puck back before you can go do what you do really well. So you got to play defense, you got to back check, and you got to forecheck, you know, or, you know, you got to penalty kill or those types of things. You got to win faceoffs. You can't win faceoffs, then you don't have the puck. So it's teaching them those skills to allow them to do what they do really well.
How does this team, with every skater committed to a Division I program, compare to the 2022 team that put 6 players on Team Canada for the U18 Women's World Championship?
Every year, every team is unique. Every team is different. You know, you have so many different personalities, kids coming from all walks of life, different backgrounds, different upbringings, different situations. This team is, you know, it's tough to compare team to team. You know, it's for me, it's day by day. You know, we have our own unique set of challenges. So this team this year is, you know, we lost the first game of the year, and I went in and, you know, we lost to Stansted 4-1, and they came by our bench, and all you heard them yelling, "You're not as good as you think you are." And after the game, and I went in and said, "You know what? They're right. We're not as good as we think we are." You know, until the overtime loss to Mississauga, we hadn't lost, and you know, we did something pretty unique in Stony Creek tournament, scoring 49 goals. It's probably arguably the biggest tournament in the world for this age group. And we scored 49 goals, gave up 5, and none of them were on 5-on-5 when we gave up, and 2 of them were 5-on-3s. And we beat BK Select, who's a well-known program, 10-1 in the semis, and Lovell 6-1. You know, they have a lot of USA players on that team. Our kids, when they're dialed in and when they're believing and when they're playing very selfless hockey and team-oriented hockey, it's fun to watch. And, you know, there's times this year I just shake my head and smirk to myself or turn around just like, I can't believe we're scoring goals like that. Like, it's fun to watch because we play a different kind of hockey. We do a lot of switches. We do a lot of east-west hockey and puck movement in the offensive zone, and we do a lot of different zone entries. We did a power play last night below the goal line, and the linesman looks back. He goes, "I've never seen this." I'm like, "Yeah, so look at their body language. They haven't seen it either." So, you know, it's being a little bit unconventional, but when you have talented players that are willing to be challenged for something different, it's pretty cool as a coach.
When you play teams like BK Selects and Lovell, who do have some really talented American players, what is the biggest separator for you guys? Because, like you said, you're not beating them, 2-1 or 1-0. You're beating them 10-1. What's the biggest separator for a Etobicoke versus a BK Selects or a Lovell or any other American Tier 1 program?
Depth. We come at you in waves.
Depth.
Yeah, we just come in at you wave after wave. That's the huge one. The huge thing for us is depth. We can start whoever, where they're going to give us a shift, and it's contagious. Like when that bench starts going, Pittsburgh gave us a hell of a game. We scored 2 minutes left on the power play. They had the Team USA goaltender, but they packed it in, block shots. They kind of looked like us blocking shots. They packed it in, and I laughed. I went down to our assistant coach and I was like, Blake, look at this. Player was holding on to the dasher in the second period, couldn't get off the ice because of how much we had them running around. Like, was literally huffing. I was like, kudos to that kid. That goaltender is phenomenal too for Pittsburgh. All the credit to her, and more.
Thank you for illustrating on that, because part of the reason I want to talk to you is I wanted to learn the differences between Canadian hockey at this level and American hockey. Now, can I assume that you are a staunch Canadian patriot?
I am, although Poland didn't think so. That's why they came knocking for me to coach them.
Well, but you said yes, and then you resigned in April, didn't you?
I was only on that contract to take them through Worlds. So, yeah.
Okay.
When we're talking Canada, USA hockey and the differences, go over to Europe and see differences. It's very player-led teams over there, very resistant to change, very resistant to anything, youth injections and stuff like that. It's different. It's not wrong. It's just different.
Okay. You're talking America is just different.
No, Europe is what I'm saying. That
Europe. Okay.
Yeah, the difference is, I think, when Haley Box's dad was saying that's why he was happy that Haley wanted to come up here, was just to kind of get a little bit more of an Canadian style of play. I think, it's just a little bit more gritty at times. There's gritty teams in the States, but I think we play just a 200-foot game on a continuous basis. We play a little bit different. That's all it is. You look at a player like Abby Murphy, who gave me fits for years playing with Chicago Michigan. She single-handedly knocked us out of a tournament, drawing 2 penalties, and she scored both power play goals. But I like that too, because that's, kind of an American, we'll get under your skin and get you to chase me around the ice.
So I was at the gold medal game for the 2022 U18 Women's Worlds, and I was trying to put into words what it's like to watch a team that just wants it more. It's such a cliche. They just want it more. They're like, what does that actually freaking mean? And it was the grit from the Canadian side. They were so willing to go head first into the USA goalie. They were willing to make the Americans uncomfortable. They just wanted it more. So to hear you put it in terms of grit, that makes a lot of sense to me.
I think when you put on that Canadian jersey, it does one of two things. It either puts an anchor on your ankle and drags you down when the pressure's too much, or it makes you rise up because you know what it means, and that grit comes in, and I'll do whatever it takes. If I haven't blocked a shot once in my life, I will block it right now willingly, and it doesn't matter how injured I get, because the pride that is bestowed upon me to wear that jersey. And like I said, it's that pride factor, whatever it takes.
I asked you about being a patriot because Americans, we watch American-born players migrate north to the Dub or the O or the Q or the whatever. And there's a little bit of resentment that the Canadian game is still considered the gold standard. And as Americans, we have this incredible little brother complex when it comes to Canada. When you see your girls leaving Etobicoke and overwhelmingly attend college in the United States, do you guys is there a little piece of you that says, hey, I wish you'd think of the University of New Brunswick or the University of Ottawa?
No, not at all. Do what's best for you. I've been fortunate enough, to go to the Wisco, when Madison, Wisconsin held the Worlds a couple of years ago, and their staff took me around their facilities. Like, you look at stuff, you look at the football stadiums and everything in the States, like everything they do is on steroids to us up here. We can't offer what they do down there. Like it's you understand it. And I think that's what, and on the very, very smaller scale, that's what I try to do, is try to offer something that other teams can't. Our facilities, like we have a recovery room with a wood sauna for the girls. We have massage chair, reclining chairs. They have custom shoes, all that kind of stuff. Like, that's in the same thing. Canadian universities can't offer that. And you go down to the Americans things, and they're like, oh yeah, we have this app on our phone, and I just, I go on this, and I'll have a smoothie ready for me in 10 minutes up, at the kitchen and stuff. I'm like, Yeah, good luck trying to find that anywhere in a Canadian university here. You can find a Subway that you have a dining card on and enjoy Subway, and that's going to run out. And, you know, when you go to the States, that ain't running out because they'll give you whatever resource you need to help them get to an NCAA championship or to help them stay afloat. So, no, you know, at the end of the day, I'll support my players in any walk of life and anything they choose to do. It's pretty cool now to see our kids getting into med schools. Or last weekend, one of my former players is now a police officer here coming up, and just seeing the progression. And it's just like, I think the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is one day getting invited to a wedding of one of my former alumni. You know, I'm starting to do this long enough now. You see the progression. You're starting to see, like, we had 4 of our kids at Cornell that are, you better be at graduation day, or Joe, will you come to graduation day this year? It's like, those are kids that I won a provincial championship with here 4 years ago. You know, and we were David and we took down Goliath. So,
all right, I got one more for you. I would like to end on that. That's a very sentimental note, which I appreciate, but I got one more for you and then I'll let you go. Joe, what is your biggest dream for the Etobicoke Dolphins?
The biggest dream is just to keep on pushing the envelope, keep on growing the program, keep on doing that. So just keep on pushing the envelope. Where can we take this program to? Always keep on changing the why to why not. Like, why can't the girls have certain things, you know, facilities, specialized coaches, access to certain things. This year, we just signed an exclusive partnership with Gatorade, and they're going to start doing sweat testing with us. They're giving us all the product lineup. They're going to do educational seminars with us. I just want to keep on pushing the envelope, and I just want to keep on giving our kids the most amount of resources and access to be successful. You know, we'll put it in front of you. Doesn't mean you have to use it, but we're going to give you the ability and the opportunities to become better than you were when you entered the program. So when you leave, you have survival skills. You have a foundation to go to your university, to get in the classroom, to leave proud, to leave confident, to feel like you can take on the world.
To feel like you can take on the world. How about that? That's a great note to end on. Joe, thanks so much for being here, and please kick the Dodgers' ass for everyone here.
Oh, go Jays, go.
Go Jays, go. Joe Butkevich, head coach of the Etobicoke U22 Elite Dolphins. Thanks so much for making the time today. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate your time.
Hey, there's no way around. On top of the mountain, I'm queen of the mountain. My cup running